Are you a burnt out overachiever buried in responsibilities? Do you miss laughing with your friends, just laughing from the gut? Do you feel like life's passing you by? If you've been wishing for some kind of shift, you're in the right place. Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, the show where we take you off the hamster wheel by ditching your to do list for the to don't list. This is where you get to learn how to make that lonely ache vanish, learn self compassion techniques, and to give yourself grace. I'm Lauren Abrams, and I get to help you feel that magic again since going through my own dark night of the soul, so you can learn from my experience and the mentors and experts I meet along the way. And today we're talking to intuitive coach, speaker, author, and your heart-centered empowerer, Becky Vollmer. Do you sometimes feel jealous of what others are doing? Do you wish you had a soul whisperer, a dream doula, a change maker by your side guiding you with exactly what you need? You do. And she's here right now, and she sees the divine badass in you, charms it out, and cheers you on. The author of You Are Not Stuck. Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, Becky.
Oh, it's so great to be here. And what a lovely introduction. You have so much energy in the way you describe what I do, which when I describe it, it's just sort of, it doesn't sound nearly that exciting.
Oh, yeah. Like, I write, I help people. What are you
That's right.
kidding? You're a soul whisperer, a dream doula, a change catalyst. You bring out what
Aw.
I mean, my thing is always like, well, what brings you joy? What fills you up? Yours is way better. And I love this book. I'm holding up the book. If you're not watching on video and you're just listening, You Are Not Stuck. How soul guided choices transform fear into freedom, which I love. I love that. Yeah. Walk through that fear, get free. I don't usually say, so what's your story? But you have such an interesting story that I kind of want to hear it. And it's such a boring first question, I know, but I want to hear, because you're this yoga maven and you're a reporter, and like so many people who are feeling like they're not doing what they're called and here to do, or maybe they were for a while, but they want to make the shift and they're like, I don't know how, or I'm not sure, and I'm scared, or whatever it is. You did it. You took that leap of faith, and you're doing what you love doing now. So, like, can you just talk about that? That's a long question.
It's okay. The heart of it, I think, what you're getting at is, how do we know when it's time to move on from something? And, sure, so many of us ask that question, like, I'm just not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, maybe we have been doing what we're supposed to be doing for that period of time. And maybe it's just time to do something different. Right.
Touche.
So to have just to have the grace of like, okay, been there for a while, done that for a while. And now what am I ready for next? What is calling to me, not just from a headspace perspective, like what do I think would be a wise next step, but what is calling to my soul? Like, what would I be really pissed if I ignored? And then to move forward from that perspective. So yeah, my story in as much of a nutshell as I can cram it into, I'm somebody who thought she would spend an entire professional lifetime as a crusty old newspaper reporter and editor. Went to journalism school, spent several years working in small, medium-sized newspapers. I got an offer to jump and move for a political campaign. And I hadn't felt that calling, but when they said, we'll double your salary, I was there. And so,
like, okay.
yeah, so to kind of put my media background to work from another perspective was fun. Did that for a couple of campaign cycles and then found my way into public relations and public affairs. So all of those were very closely related, kind of one step, and then the next step made a whole lot of sense. And then the one after that was just another natural extension of that. And altogether, it was about 2 decades in communications. And that's where I reached a point of just, after my 2 young kids had come around, I got fried. I got super fried. And like so many working parents, trying to juggle the pressure of a job that doesn't ever stop with the pressure of, little ones, and their needs don't ever stop either. And then somewhere, in our spare time, we're supposed to also be taking care of ourselves and our friends and our families, our loved ones, our communities, our passions. And I just found if I had tried to continue to make that work, I was going to lose more of my mind than I already had. So, I had reached the point where it was just time where something had to give. And I knew that something was the corporate role. And so after a whole lot of, years of self-reflection and self-flagellation and just a whole lot of hand wringing, I finally leapt. And I would love to say that I did it from a place of empowerment. I absolutely did not. I did it from a place of complete full on fear, but feeling like I didn't have much choice, because as much as I had tried to exercise my own choices in that corporate environment, I never seemed to be able to make my voice, my needs heard in the way that they needed to be. And so it was from that place of being kind of backed up against a wall that I say I leapt, but I really feel like I just kind of fell out of a window, you know? And I was lucky enough to have the support of my then husband. We've long since divorced, but my then husband, who, against his better judgment, was able to, support us financially until whatever my next step was going to be came to pass. So that's a place of privilege that not everybody, most people actually do not have, but I count myself among the lucky. But what was really interesting and kind of how from that place I transitioned to the work I do now, and I'm putting work in air quotes because it doesn't feel like work at all. But so many people came to me and said, "Oh, you're so brave. I wish I could do what you did. I wish I could just, go without a plan B." And it's like, sister, you got it wrong. Brave was not it. But it got me curious about asking the question of other people and really trying to understand the issue. Why do we stay, stuck in circumstances and situations that we fucking hate, pardon my French, when ostensibly we could just make another choice? And so, I got to put my strategic communications hat back on, put some research in the field, try to synthesize all the responses. And, from that research that I did, I was really able to see a pretty clear picture. There were, not just the anecdotal evidence, but there was enough statistical reinforcement there to see that picture of the fears that hold us back, because they're really pretty universal. And so then once I could see those common fears and the
Which
common,
are,
well, for a lot of people, it gets down to not having the financial resources to be able to
okay.
make a change. But
But
beyond that,
people that can afford it, what are their fears?
fear of change and fear of
Okay.
failure. And,
Okay.
we think like, oh, well, thanks, Captain Obvious. I never could have figured that out on my own. But when you kind of peel away at those answers, fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of not succeeding by whatever definition they use, fear of being ridiculed, fear of being judged. There's so many deep layers to this, but it all comes back to how we perceive ourselves. But then beyond that, there's also the behavior piece. So in addition to asking people, hey, what's holding you back? What are you afraid of? I really wanted to understand, how do you feel when you say you feel stuck, and what do you do about it? And though there were so many common threads through those answers, the responses that jumped out were people feeling like, I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to isolate. I'm going to procrastinate. I'm just going to sit and cry. But essentially it was, I'm not going to do anything.
I'm going to
And if
stay stuck.
That's right. I'm going to stay stuck. But if I am going to do something, it is definitely more likely to be something, we'll call it unhealthy and
Yeah.
unproductive,
Yes.
than healthy and productive. So, people are much more likely to, turn to drugs and alcohol and, all the other isms that we have, the, scrolling and sex and gambling and you name it, all the things that we do just to try to change the way we feel and the way we think that we can't ever escape feeling. But good news is, what I've learned from kind of going through this process of feeling stuck and then working my way through to not necessarily the other side, but an other side, I've learned that there are some pretty tried and true proven steps to take that inevitably get me to the place where I want to be. And so my work, again, putting that in air quotes, my work has been trying to empower people to feel like they can go through that process too.
Everybody can't go through the process, but you can get the book. The fact that you were a communications major and you were a writer for so long explains why the book is so easy to read. This is very readable, you guys. Yeah. And fun. Your personality definitely comes through in reading the book. So yeah, I knew it would be fun to be talking to you today. So, I mean, you help people ask the questions of themselves that need to be asked. And then you don't answer them for them.
Oh God, no.
The answers are from everybody has them within themselves. They know. Yeah. I remember seeing some posts sometime like, you don't need to go to all these different coaches and this and that and everything else. Like, do the work on yourself first. And then at least you'll know where to go. Mm-hmm. Don't buy all these programs and have 20 half finished programs and everything else.
That's right.
Like, if you get this book, see why you're stuck, see what you're stuck with and what you want to do. Then you could get the correct coach or whatever, if you need one, or just follow the footsteps of somebody because you don't have to invent the wheel. So how do you help somebody get unstuck?
Well, I think the fundamental answer to that is that I help them see that they don't need anybody else's permission to make a change. And that's what's most fundamental. In that research that I did, asking people questions about how they viewed making a change in their life, this is the most heartbreaking piece of it. About 2/3 of people said they felt like they needed to change. 40% of people said they were ready to change. I asked people, how many of you feel empowered to change? And that number plummeted down to, I think it was 14%. So just a minuscule number of people feeling like they've got the agency to make their own choices to have the lives they want to have. And, I don't know about you, Lauren, but I have certainly spent a lot of time in my life making decisions based on what I thought other people wanted me to do. Parents, employers, romantic partners, you name it. Other people's expectations really drove a lot of my actions. But once I realized that other people's expectations aren't something that need to guide my life, that opened a whole new horizon for me in so many of the big changes that I've made. And as I talk with people in the workshops and the retreats that I lead, that's where they begin to see the most opportunity for freedom, is when they reclaim the power of, well, how do I feel? And what do I want to do? So that's really I think that's the first set of questions where I help people begin their thought process is, how do you feel? What do you need? What's the culture of your life that you want to create? And then give people something to work toward as opposed to something to run away from. So often we feel like, oh God, it's like, I'm so stuck and I hate this and I hate that and my job sucks and I'm ready to leave my marriage. And, I've got to blow everything up. I've got to Thelma and Louise my way to freedom. When the truth is, if we just shift the ownership of our own lives back where it belongs to us, that path to freedom gets a whole lot easier to walk.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you're also a yoga teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And how does this come into play? Were you doing yoga back when you were still working with the press, or she's nodding her head. Yes.
I started doing yoga about, at this point, it's been almost 25 years ago. I was going through my first divorce. I've had two, but the first one it's like, I don't count. I don't claim that one. I was 25 years old. I got married when I knew better, and I did it anyway.
Starter marriage.
That's right.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
That's right. The starter marriage. And so I was, just trying to sort of restart my life at, the ripe old age of 25, and realizing I needed something to keep me company as I was just regenerating in this little teeny tiny apartment by myself. And so I just threw in a VHS tape, and I was like, damn it, I can't touch my toes. Damn it, I can't sit here, that long and try to empty my mind. But there was something about that I was like, you know what? I'm breathing a little more deeply. I'm feeling a sense of something that I couldn't quite name, but it was quiet. I was like, I like that enough that I'm willing to sit through the discomfort of not knowing what the hell I'm doing to try to do that again. And so I practiced for years on my own. And then after a while, I kind of, I went to a yoga studio. Actually, I take that back. I went to like a big box. I went to like a Bally's and took a yoga class there in the big gym. And I was like, well, this isn't so bad. And then I went to an actual yoga studio. I'm like, well, this is getting better and better. And then one of the teachers whose class I attended on a regular basis, I was like, wow, if she can do that, maybe I can do that too. And it wasn't long, too long after that, that I did my first yoga teacher training. And that was almost 20 years ago.
That's
While I
amazing.
was, yeah, I mean, it was while I was still in the thick of the corporate world. I just did it, on the side. I trained on the weekends and practiced on the weekends. And it's been one of those lessons in you never know what little seed that you might plant today will over time become your whole garden. I never could have envisioned back when I did that first yoga teacher training that, someday it would be my full-time job to lead yoga-based retreats all across the country. Never could have envisioned that. But what was cool about adding a yoga practice to my life was, not just that, of course, it feels good in your body and you learn how to breathe, and that, that also feels good to your nervous system, and you learn how to quiet the mind. And, that really is the ultimate goal of
Yeah,
yoga.
the
Right?
quieting the mind, right
That's right.
there.
That's right. Well, my teacher, put it to me in unforgettable terms, which is, you learn how to control the body and you can control your breath, control the breath and you control your mind. And it's like, oh, that's what I want to do. And so, adding that practice into my life gave me, of course, all of the individual benefits that one might experience from practicing yoga. But more than anything, it absolutely blew open my spiritual perspective of life. And it gave me, as a human being walking this earth, it gave me a whole different perspective about who I truly am and what I'm truly capable of and what the real rules are that I'm supposed to follow. And I think it was through that practice of yoga, that deepening practice of yoga and studying yoga philosophy, was how I, came to a place of recognizing that, man, we are not here to be walking, talking revenue generators, right? Like, we are here to actually live and experience and connect and feel love and be loved. And I know at the time, people kind of looked at me like I had two heads. Here was me, one part of me in power heels and a great suit, managing multi-million dollar portfolio of business and counseling C-suite executives. And then over here, there was like this barefoot, curly haired, patchouli wearing, om chanting spirit. And they felt in the beginning like they were such polar opposites of being. But what's been the coolest part of my evolution these last couple of decades is recognizing that it's not A or B, one or the other. It can really just kind of bring it all together for our higher good.
Oh, absolutely. We used to, I work from home now, but we used to meditate at my law practice. Wasn't required.
Mhm.
It's like, no, everyone has time. You'll see. The rest of your day will be so much more productive. We just come and sit and
That's right.
breathe.
That's right.
In the afternoons, and everyone felt great afterwards. They're like, no, I don't have time today. And it's my practice. It's not like the boss is going to get mad. Like, it's my suggestion. So it's an amazing thing that, like, come on, let's do 20 minutes today. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
come on.
And so fast
Yeah.
forward, 20 years, I never could have envisioned that it would be, a professional, like a legitimate professional endeavor to try to open people's eyes to their own inner stardust and help them feel empowered to make choices from the place of their soul rather than choices from the place of their ego brain, right? Who would have thought that was a job opportunity?
Yeah, right. And here you are with this huge community. And I don't know if it's open to everyone. If anybody's listening, Becky has these open circle get unstuck, I guess it is. Every Wednesday, just go to our website. We have links for everything of yours. And you have so much to offer. And which is really beautiful that and you can learn all about these. And yeah, you have a huge community. But well, how did you break free from your own self-limiting beliefs?
Oh, I mean, talk about a lifetime pursuit. And isn't that something that we all are doing on repeat a little bit every day,
Yeah.
trying to remember that we're not the thoughts that we have. We all have that inner voice. And I love the different names that it can go by. Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, he
Yes.
calls his the roommates that never shut up. I call mine the pipsqueak twerp, just because
Yeah.
I wanted to, I really wanted to take away its power. But we all have some version of just that nasty, lying, bullshit voice in our head that is, I want to give the poor guy some props because it's just afraid and it's just trying to keep it safe. But man, the nasty, nasty things that voice says all the time. It can feel like a full-time job to talk back to it and refute it so that we can remember who we really are. But for me, that was an important first step in learning how to, kind of grab those limiting beliefs by the shoulders and shake them loose and say, you're not real. You're not real. And so when I come back and remember, oh, I'm not just a human being walking this earth, like I'm a meat coated skeleton made of stardust. Oh, okay. Well, then all of a sudden my opportunities open up in a different way. So for me,
Yeah,
it's about
definitely.
remembering who I am.
I love that. Yeah. I was always told it's the committee. They're at work. Thanks for sharing. You can sit down now. So what's the hardest thing that you've gone through and how did you get through it?
Oh my gosh. one,
The look
one,
you just
the,
gave me.
You know, I mean, I don't know about you, Lauren, but I feel like the older I get, and I'm,
More
I'm coming up
choices.
on, well, I was
Sorry.
going to say, the more I realize that it's kind of a never ending stream of challenges to get through. Yes, we all have sort of the big defining milestones. There was something huge that sent me into a spiral of grief. There was this, big unexpected change that knocked me off course. And yes, I've had those. And there are the small everyday occurrences that make us challenge our habitual ways of thinking and responding. And if the cumulative effect of that isn't as great as a big tragedy and a big trauma, right? So the hardest thing that I've ever gone through, I'll point to, two kind of big things, but then to put it into perspective. I think the hardest thing I've experienced so far was having a marriage that I thought was completely rock solid, just kind of crumble underneath my feet in a way that I didn't see coming. And it was certainly painful for me as an individual, but I think even more painful because I had two young daughters at the time and I had grown up, a child of divorce. And that was something that I just never wanted for them, right? As we all
Yes.
do.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel that. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
100%.
but what's interesting though is that, our generation is sort of stuck in between that sandwich of I was the first generation child of divorce. And so I didn't want my
Yeah.
children to repeat that. But when our children, they're going to be the second generation, the third generation of divorce. And what we're seeing is that, that typical nuclear family where the parents stay married for 50 years, that is much more the exception than the rule now. And so, the thing that so many of us had feared and dreaded for our children,
Yeah.
by the time they are having children and inevitably divorcing, it's going to be an easier road for them to walk, in part because it's becoming more normalized, less stigmatized, and in part because I think people are recognizing the beauty of their own agency, where they don't have to stay stuck in a situation, where they didn't want to be for 50 years. They can choose something different, and it doesn't have to have all of the horrible side effects that we anticipated it was going to have. So anyway, I'm a little off topic. Having a,
No, you're not. You're not at
no, I'm
all.
not.
No,
Okay.
and how did you get through it? Is like the next, yeah.
Lexapro. I mean, I'm not really, I am so grateful for the mental health support that has become so prevalent in our society. And I know, again, I'm saying that from a place of privilege,
Yeah.
where I have access to providers and I have access to quality care. I really don't know how I would have made it through that time in particular, and some other times, past that, without, the right kind of support at the right time. And so whether that's pharmacological support or individual therapy, I don't think I would have made it through without that. So my hat's off to mental health providers and mental health support systems. The other thing that I think was very challenging for me to hard thing to make it through, especially in the beginning, was the decision to become sober. So I'm somebody, I grew up in an alcoholic family. I started drinking at a very young age. I knew for many, many, many years that I did not have a handle on my drinking. My drinking had a handle on me for sure. And it's funny, I see a lot of parallels with the decision to leave my old job. It took so much hand wringing and mind fucking and really just self-flagellation before I could get the guts together to quit. And once again, it didn't feel brave at the time. It felt terrifying. It felt like I was at such a low point, right? I look back on that time now from, a vantage point that's 10 years later in time, and I see, God, what a brave decision that was. I can't think of anything braver that we do, honestly. And, to anticipate your question, how did I get through that? That comes back to part of my yoga practice and remembering who I am, that I'm not just this broken down, suffering young woman who, can't control herself and she's just a piece of crap. Instead, remembering I'm made of stardust, which is my word for, it's my nod
I
to
love it.
my soul, or, knowing that I am, oh boy, this one, I always feel like somebody's going to roll their eyes when they hear this, but, recognition that I am God in the same way you are God. Like, we are all just this magnificent, connected force of energy. But when I was able to remember that and then prioritize and really honor the holiness within me, that's what carried me through those first weeks, months, years of quitting drinking. And then, later into this life, that's this beautiful life of sobriety.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I was going to ask you, and do you have a message of hope you want to give? I feel like you just gave one, but do you have a message of hope you want to give?
Oh, I feel like that's what this business of, trying to empower people is all about, which is all about offering hope for themselves, hope for their future, hope for their choices, hope for every change they want to explore. And I think where the biggest aspect of hope comes in when we don't believe that we are stuck. Like, when we can say, I feel stuck, that's different than saying, I am stuck. And so when we can recognize that stuck is a feeling, and feelings are not facts, and feelings are not final. And when we come at our feelings from a different, more grounded place, we can use that not as something that kind of shuts the door on us, but that is almost like a springboard to finding and creating and cultivating that life that we really want to live. So if I have a message of hope, it comes down to choice. And what I tell people all the time, especially when they're feeling so stuck and so afraid, is I remind them the opposite of fear isn't just courage. The opposite of fear is choice.
Yeah, I
So
saw
we
that
just,
on yours. I
yeah,
love that. Yeah.
yeah. We
It's
just have to
great.
be brave enough to make those choices.
Yeah, and it's such an open word. Like my arms
Mhm.
open, like the open and you get to walk
Mhm.
through. You get to
Yeah.
walk when you have
Yeah.
a choice. You get to go. You're not stuck. You're unstuck.
Mhm.
See? You are not stuck. Wait. See? Yay. Oh, I love that. Well done. That went full, like that went a full 360. I like that. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or we're gonna be done and you're gonna be like, "Ah, Lauren didn't ask me this."
Oh my God. I could talk about this all day long.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think there's anything. Well, you know what? There is one thing. People ask me a lot, but what if I don't know what I'm supposed to do? What if all I can see is what I don't want and I have no idea about what it is I should be doing instead? What if I don't know what I want to change? And my best advice is just keep asking the right questions and be patient enough to allow the wisdom to kind of bubble up within you when it's supposed to.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Do you have journaling prompts in here? I didn't see that.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Dozens,
oh,
dozens and
yeah, here they
dozens.
are. There's a ton of them. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, there's so many exercises. This is put together so simply for you guys. Like,
Mm.
there's so much. It's just anyway. I will have a link to this, and I love that. So thank you so much for being a guest today on 52 Weeks of Hope.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it was really great.